There are women who carry invisible scars that shape them into warriors before they even knew what battle meant. You, a Cancer woman, might be one of them. The woman who learned to depend on herself, not by choice, but by necessity. The one who discovered her strength in the silence of pain, in the absence of the support she deserved. Carl Jung understood that our deepest wounds often become our greatest sources of wisdom. He spoke of how suffering activates profound archetypal defenses within us, awakening what he called the wise old woman and the wounded healer. These are not just concepts from ancient mythology. They live within you, forged in the moments when no one was watching, when no one was applauding, yet you continued to rise. This journey through 7 distinct marks will reveal how your solitary strength transformed you into something deeper than you realized. Each characteristic carries both the weight of what you've endured and the luminous power of who you've become. These are not mere personality traits, but archetypal signatures written in your very soul. The first mark lives in your sharpened intuition, that razored awareness that cuts through deception before your conscious mind can process the warning signs. The Cancer woman, with her sensitive and emotional nature, often develops a keen perception, easily noticing subtle cues that others miss. Your intuition became sharp because trust became dangerous, especially when it came to protecting your loved ones or your safe space. Jung would recognize this as direct contact with what he called the collective unconscious, where ancient wisdom about survival and protection resides. This isn't mystical thinking. It's a defense system born from learning that words often lie, while energy never does. Your body learned to read rooms before your mind could process why. A glance that lingers too long. A silence that carries weight. A gesture that feels off. You develop this radar not through gift, but through necessity. The wise woman archetype within you awakened because naivety became too costly. Now you sense what others miss, feel what others ignore, know what others refuse to acknowledge. The cellular memory of betrayal taught your nervous system to speak in whispers before danger announces itself. You've learned to trust the tightening in your chest when someone's words don't match their energy. The inexplicable urge to leave certain spaces. The way your body rejects what your mind hasn't yet understood. This embodied wisdom operates faster than thought, more accurately than analysis. Have you noticed how your gut speaks louder than logic? How you can feel someone's intentions before they speak them? This hypervigilance that others might call paranoia is actually profound intelligence. You learn to trust the wisdom of your nervous system because it saved you when nothing else would. Yet this gift carries its burden. Sometimes you see too much, feel too deeply, know too clearly. The world becomes transparent in ways that can feel overwhelming. But this sight, this knowing, this intuitive precision is one of your greatest strengths. It keeps you safe. It keeps you authentic. It keeps you sovereign. This heightened perception creates a peculiar loneliness. You see patterns in relationships that others miss. Recognize emotional manipulations before they fully form. Sense the undercurrents of situations that remain invisible to those around you. Sometimes you question whether your insights are accurate or if hypervigilance has created false signals. But time consistently proves your inner compass correct. The second mark reveals itself in your silent self-assertion, the way you move through space without needing to announce your presence. You possess what Jung called a centered authority, the kind that emerges from years of standing in your own power, when no one else would stand with you. This isn't dominance or aggression. This is something far more profound, the quiet authority of someone who has met herself completely. You don't need to raise your voice because your presence speaks volumes. People sense this immediately. There's something about you that can't be manipulated, can't be diminished, can't be made small. This makes some people uncomfortable because it challenges the social expectations of how women should move through the world. Your self-possession disrupts the narrative that you should seek approval, should diminish yourself, should make others comfortable at your own expense. This authority was forged in the crucible of abandonment. When you had no one to turn to, you turned inward. When you had no one to rely on, you became reliable to yourself. Jung called this process individuation, the journey towards psychological wholeness. You achieved it, not through academic study or therapeutic insight, but through the raw necessity of survival. The internal restructuring that occurred during your isolation created something unexpected, where others developed their sense of self through external validation and social mirroring. You were forced to excavate your identity from within. This solitary construction of selfhood produces a different quality of confidence, one that doesn't require constant reinforcement because it wasn't built on others' opinions to begin with. How much of your strength was built in complete solitude? In moments when the world forgot you existed, yet you refused to forget yourself. This silent authority you carry now is the direct result of those invisible battles, those private victories, those quiet moments of choosing yourself when no one else would. The third mark emerges in your profound capacity to endure painful silences. You learn to inhabit emptiness without being consumed by it. Where others flee from quiet moments, you've made peace with the void. Jung understood that what he called the negative mother complex could push us into profound solitude. But in your case, this solitude became sacred rather than punishing. You've sat with your pain without needing to broadcast it. You've endured heartbreak without needing witnesses. You faced your demons in the privacy of your own soul and emerged not bitter but clearer. The silence that once threatened to swallow you whole became your sanctuary, your teacher, your most trusted companion. This capacity to be alone with yourself without distraction or numbing is rare in a world that fears introspection. You learn to find the sacred in the empty spaces, the divine in the quiet moments, the profound in the seemingly vacant hours. Your relationship with solitude transformed from survival mechanism to spiritual practice. Can you sit with yourself without needing entertainment, without needing external validation, without needing noise to drown out the sound of your own soul? This ability to be present with your own inner landscape, even when it's painful, is one of your most profound gifts. It means you know yourself in ways that others who constantly seek distraction never will. Moving into the fourth mark, your capacity for love with clear boundaries reveals a wisdom that can only come from having loved unwisely and learned from it. You love deeply, but you no longer love at the expense of your own soul. Jung spoke of the mother archetype that gives until depleted, until there's nothing left. You transcended this pattern not through selfishness, but through sacred self-preservation. There was a time when you confused love with sacrifice, when you believed caring meant self-abandonment. You gave everything you had and received crumbs in return. You poured yourself out for people who never thought to ask if your well was running dry. But somewhere in that process of depletion, you discovered something revolutionary. Love that doesn't include self-love isn't actually love at all. Now your love comes with boundaries that protect the sacred space you've cultivated within yourself. You say no not from cruelty but from wisdom. You hold space for others without losing yourself in their stories. You care without becoming responsible for outcomes you cannot control. This transformation from compulsive caregiver to conscious lover is one of the most significant evolutionary leaps a Cancer woman can make. Learning to love with limits required unlearning centuries of conditioning that taught you that good women disappear into others' needs. The process of reclaiming your right to exist within your own relationships felt revolutionary and terrifying simultaneously. Each boundary you set felt like a small betrayal of who you thought you should be, until you realized you were actually betraying who you thought others wanted you to be. Have you learned the difference between loving someone and losing yourself in someone? Between caring for others and disappearing into their needs? Your love now carries the dignity of someone who has remembered her own worth. This isn't selfish love, it's sustainable love. It's love that can last because it doesn't demand your destruction as proof of its authenticity. The fifth mark reveals itself in your remarkable resilience without victimhood. Your resilience emerged not from denial of pain, but from the alchemical process of transforming suffering into wisdom. Jung would say, you integrated your shadow without becoming cynical, that you faced your darkness without losing your light. You don't use your pain as a weapon against others, or as an excuse for remaining stuck. Instead, you've learned to use it as fertilizer for growth, as guidance for direction, as fuel for transformation. Your story hurts, but it also illuminates. Your wounds became doorways to deeper understanding, not just of yourself, but of the human experience itself. This resilience isn't the brittle kind that cracks under pressure. It's the flexible strength of someone who has bent without breaking so many times that adaptability became second nature. You've learned to navigate storms, not by becoming harder, but by becoming more fluid, more responsive, more attuned to the rhythms of change and recovery. Do you use your pain to evolve or to justify staying small? The difference between these two approaches to suffering separates those who grow through their challenges from those who become trapped by them. You chose growth, even when growth was the harder path, even when staying small would have been easier, even when no one was there to witness your courage. The sixth mark manifests as complete emotional and practical independence. This isn't just about paying your own bills or fixing your own problems, though you do both with competence. This is about something far more profound. You stopped waiting for permission to exist fully in your own life. You don't ask others to validate your feelings because you've learned to trust your own emotional compass. You don't seek approval for your decisions because you've developed the inner authority to guide your own path. You don't wait to be chosen because you've chosen yourself so completely that external selection became secondary to internal acceptance. Jung would recognize in you what he called a well-developed ego structure, one that emerged from the collapse of old dependencies and false securities. You became your own center of gravity, not through arrogance, but through necessity. When the world showed you that you couldn't depend on others for your emotional stability, you built that stability within yourself. This independence intimidates people sometimes because it challenges the narrative that women should be incomplete without others. Your wholeness threatens systems that profit from your perceived inadequacy. But you've moved beyond caring about such reactions because you've discovered something more valuable than approval: genuine self-respect. Your self-sufficiency extends beyond practical matters into the realm of emotional regulation. You've learned to comfort yourself in distress, to celebrate your victories even when no one else notices, to provide yourself with the nurturing attention you once craved from others. This internal parenting of yourself creates a stability that external relationships can enhance but never threaten. The metamorphosis from emotional dependency to sovereign self-reliance didn't happen overnight. It required countless moments of choosing your own counsel over others' opinions, your own truth over external validation, your own pace over society's expectations. Each choice to honor your inner knowing strengthened the foundation of unshakable self-trust that now supports everything you build. Are you still waiting to be seen and chosen? Or have you learned to see and choose yourself with the reverence you deserve? This shift from external validation to internal recognition changes everything about how you move through the world. The seventh and final mark is perhaps the most profound. Your strength that requires no audience. You've learned to do what needs to be done without fanfare, to carry what needs to be carried without complaint, to endure what needs to be endured without making it a performance for others. Jung would recognize in you the archetype of the inner hero, the one who traverses internal wastelands in silence, who faces inner demons without witnesses, who conquers personal mountains without expecting medals. Your battles happen in the invisible realm where real transformation occurs, far from the eyes of those who only recognize struggle when it's loud enough to disturb their comfort. You don't announce your strength because you don't need others to believe in it for it to be real. You don't perform your resilience because it's not for entertainment. It's for survival and growth. You don't seek recognition for your endurance because the recognition that matters comes from within, from knowing that you showed up for yourself when no one else would. This quiet strength confuses a world that expects suffering to be dramatic and victory to be celebrated publicly. But you've learned that the most profound victories are often silent, that the greatest strength is often invisible, that the deepest healing happens in the sacred privacy of your own soul. Can you recognize your own magnificence even when no one else notices? Can you honor your own journey even when it lacks external witnesses? This ability to validate your own experience, to recognize your own growth, to celebrate your own victories is perhaps the most liberating skill you've developed. As we reach the heart of understanding these 7 marks, something profound emerges. You've become living proof that the human spirit can not only survive abandonment, but transform it into a source of unshakable inner authority. Your journey represents something larger than personal resilience. It connects you to an ancient lineage of women who also had to be strong alone, who also had to mother themselves, who also had to become their own ancestors. The integration of these 7 marks creates a Cancer woman of extraordinary depth. Your sharpened intuition guides decisions that others might struggle with for months. Your silent authority commands respect without demanding attention. Your comfort with solitude allows for connections that are chosen rather than desperate. Your boundaried love creates relationships built on mutual respect rather than codependency. Jung taught that healing happens when we integrate the rejected parts of ourselves, when we embrace the fragments we once tried to abandon. You've done this work not in comfortable therapy rooms, but in the raw laboratory of lived experience. You've become whole, not through addition, but through acceptance, not through finding missing pieces, but through recognizing that you were never actually broken. Your strength now carries a different quality than when it first emerged from necessity. It's no longer desperate or grasping, no longer built on the foundation of what you lacked. It's become generative, creative, magnetic in its authenticity. You don't attract people who need you to be weak for them to feel strong. You attract those who can appreciate strength without needing to diminish it. The woman you've become serves as a bridge between the frightened girl you once were and the wise woman you're still becoming. You've learned to parent your own inner child with the tenderness you once craved from others. You've learned to provide for your own emotional needs with the consistency you once sought externally. You've learned to believe in your own worth with the conviction you once hoped others would show you. This transformation ripples outward in ways you might not even recognize. Other women see your quiet strength and remember their own. Your presence gives permission for others to stop performing weakness, to stop apologizing for their competence, to stop diminishing themselves, to make others comfortable. You've become a living example that it's possible to emerge from abandonment, not bitter but better, not broken, but beautifully integrated. The particular alchemy of your transformation lies in how you've learned to extract nourishment from experiences that could have poisoned you. Each disappointment became data about human nature rather than evidence of your unworthiness. Each betrayal taught you about discernment rather than cynicism. Each period of loneliness deepened your relationship with yourself rather than convincing you of your inadequacy. What distinguishes your journey from others who faced similar circumstances is your refusal to let bitterness calcify around your heart. You've maintained the delicate balance between wisdom and openness, between protection and connection, between strength and tenderness. This requires ongoing conscious choice, a daily recommitment to growth over grievance, expansion over contraction. Your story continues to unfold, not towards some distant destination where you'll finally be complete, but deeper into the recognition that you already are complete. The strength that saved you has become the strength that serves you. The independence that protected you has become the foundation from which you choose to connect with others. What emerges now isn't the need to be rescued, because you've discovered you were never the one drowning. You were always the one swimming, always the one navigating, always the one finding your way to shore. What emerges now is the desire to be truly seen, to be genuinely appreciated, to be honored for the remarkable journey you've taken and the extraordinary woman you've become. The invisible scars you carry tell a story worth telling. The silent victories you've achieved deserve recognition. The quiet strength you embody deserves reverence. You've earned the right to be witnessed, not in your weakness, but in your power. Not in your need, but in your abundance. Not in your past wounds, but in your present wholeness. You represent something sacred in a world that often forgets the holy nature of a woman who has learned to stand in her own light. Your journey from abandonment to self-sovereignty isn't just personal transformation, it's spiritual evolution. You've alchemized suffering into wisdom, loneliness into solitude, desperation into determination. The marks you carry aren't scars of damage, but signatures of resilience. They tell the story of a woman who refused to be diminished by circumstances beyond her control, who chose growth over bitterness, who selected strength over victimhood, who picked integration over fragmentation. These marks make you recognizable to others who have walked similar paths, creating invisible bonds of understanding that transcend words. If this exploration resonated with something deep within you, if you recognized yourself in these 7 marks, please share your thoughts below. Your story matters. Your strength deserves acknowledgement. Your journey needs witnessing. Subscribe to continue exploring the profound wisdom that emerges when we honor the fullness of our experience, both the shadows and the light, both the wounds and the healing that transforms them into sources of power. The conversation continues, and your voice is essential to it.